Have you ever been accused of being dysfunctional? Maybe not, maybe they didn't use the word, but just the way the people treated you. It was kind of like a subliminal accusation, and you walked away with a feeling of being dysfunctional. And maybe there's a good reason for that because people with autism, we like things to work, we like things to function, and what's more, most of us, maybe I think I'm probably the one exception, but most people with autism know how to make things work. They know how to make things function. They think in schematic terms. They are very organized, except when it comes to Aspies themselves. Sometimes we can figure out just about anything and everything except us. All right, so here we've got 9 things, 9 ways to make yourself functional. And because you are autistic, you're probably going to relate very well to these things. But number one is raise your intelligence. When I say that, a lot of people say, Ken, you can't raise your IQ. That's inherent. That's genetic. But before you go down that road, stop and think about something. Over the last few years, the medium IQ intelligence level of the world population has been in decline. Why is that? Well, there's got to be a reason. I mean, if it's genetic, what's happening? Are we having more babies born to people who lack intelligence? I suppose we could use that as a possible correlation, but I think a more accurate correlation and possibly even causation is the fact that the world's population is getting less healthy. We're getting fat. You can go online and find the 10 fattest states or the 10 fattest countries or the 10 fattest cities. I mean, it's really an epidemic. So stop and think about this for a moment. Throughout human history, there has never, ever been a point in time when the number one health problem was we had too much to eat and had too much of the wrong thing to eat. Because people who make food, put that in quotes, food, they make it to be palatable, and they make it palatable so you'll buy it. And so the end game is to make money, not to make food. So there seems to be a correlation between eating well, and not by well, I don't mean a lot, but I mean eating healthy food and raising your IQ. And there is some science to back that up. The second thing we want to do to become more functional is to take a look at human patterns, and by that I mean simply study successful people. Now, you don't want to copy successful people because everyone has flaws. We tend to have idols, maybe a movie star, rock star, whatever field you happen to be in. There's probably somebody that you admire, but those people come with flaws. But if we could study people and look at their life patterns, and as we study them, try to identify their flaws and their positive points, and then duplicate those positive points. So what will that do? That will help us become more functional because we are studying and learning about the things that made that person or those people more functional, and at the same time discarding we could turn this thing backwards. Study people who are not successful and ask ourselves the question, what is it about them that we don't want to copy? All right, number 3 is what I would call brain input. Talking a lot about the mind, aren't we? Because that's the primary thing that makes us function. A brain. Turn off your brain, what do you have? You have nothing. So what do we talk about? Brain input is we talk about talking to ourselves. People talk to us all the time. I mean, you can't get away from it. And usually what they put in is garbage. What we want to do is put something into our brain that is encouraging, that is uplifting, that is, just positive. I hate to say positive thinking because it sounds so trivial and almost trivializes the concept. Yeah. What we want to do, first of all, is not just to be positive, but we want to, before we try to be positive, is to be honest. Now, positive thinking, I can phrase it like this. What do I want people to say to me that would be uplifting, be encouraging, and say that to myself? But yeah, you got to be honest because I'd like people to tell me I'm good looking. Oh, you're so handsome. But that's not honest. So if I tell myself you are so attractive, I'm just lying to myself, and I'm going to be disappointed if I say that, man, you're such a great athlete. When the fact of the matter is, if there's ever one thing I've never been called in my life, I've been called a lot of things. I've never been called an athlete. So what do I want others to say to me that would be encouraging and uplifting? Well, first of all, I want people to be honest with me in a positive way. I want them to point out my flaws in a positive way. Now, be careful about this because one of the tough lessons I've learned in my 70-some years is when you try to apply positive criticism to other people, they don't like it. And being too critical on yourself could maybe have some negative effects. So you want to be critical of yourself and ask yourself, what would others say to me that I would want them to say critically but not overdo it? So one of the things I like to say to myself is, I can do this. I can handle it. I need to do, well, we talked the other day, for example, about reverse procrastination. So I tell myself all the time, do this now so you don't have to do it later. And there's some other things. That's kind of what we're talking about throughout this presentation. That brings us to number 4, and that is we really need to embrace truth. That is to say, embrace reality. The challenge is of the 8 billion people who inhabit the planet, no two of them are in agreement about what truth is, about what reality is. We all have different ideas. What's more, I don't know any individual who agrees with himself or herself all the time. We do change our minds, but that should not say, well, nobody knows what reality is, so why bother? Well, we need to find out what truth is, what reality is. And number 1, align our thoughts with what we know to be true. And number 2, align our actions with what we have discovered to be true. So we're going to align our thoughts and our actions with what truth is. The problem is we jump to conclusions. For example, have you ever lost something like a wallet or your keys or maybe your cell phone, and you jump to the conclusion that somebody had stolen it only to find it later, and you weren't aligning your thoughts and your actions with truth. I mean, if you had said, maybe somebody didn't steal that thing. Maybe I just misplaced it. By the way, I learned this little trick, frustrating as it is. If I ever lose something, I found the best way to find it is to go buy another one. Sure enough, if I go buy something that I've lost, I will find the one that I've lost, and then I'll have to take back the new one, or just have 2 of them. Number 5, we talked about brain input. Let's talk about brain output for just a moment. We have what I would call psychological demons that we need to have exercised, need to cast them out of our brain. One of them is excessive and unnecessary self-doubt. Self-doubt's a good thing if it's accurate, because we're not going to try to improve things if we don't recognize that they need to be improved. So we need to have that little bit of doubt, or accurate doubt. But just constantly doubting ourselves, I can't do it. Probably one of the biggest problems I had growing up going to school was I thought it was too hard, even when it wasn't. People put those thoughts in my mind. I love history, but when I was a kid, I hated it because somebody told me that history was really, really hard. And so I didn't even think about it. I just thought, well, I'm not going to study history because it's going to hurt my brain. Of course, when I got older, I discovered that history is really interesting. And I wish I'd known that when I was a kid. So we need to get those demons of doubt out of our mind, those negative things that have no reason being there, and rumination is one of them. Beating ourselves up for past mistakes. And I tell you, talking about preaching to the choir, I'm preaching to the mirror. I just can't stop beating myself up over the stupid things that I've done in my life. And I've done a lot of stupid things, particularly when I was, pre-adolescent, or, that we used to call it junior high, now they call it middle school age. I do some of the dumbest things, and now here I am in the later years of my life, in my 70s, and I'm still ruminating, asking myself, why in the world did you do that? Why did you say that? Why did you not say this? Why did you not do this? Ruminating, that's a demon. I need to get out of my head. Maybe the same thing. Number 6 is game theory. Game theory simply means that we observe and predict what other people are going to do. Playing chess is an exercise in game theory because, and I don't play chess, by the way, because, well, here comes that self-doubt. I'm not smart enough. But when you play chess, what you're doing basically is you're trying to predict what your opponent is going to do, and you make your decisions based upon what you think his decisions or her decisions will be, and your opponent, if they're a decent chess player, are doing the same thing to you. So, game theory, just try to figure out what other people are going to do, particularly those who live in the neurotypical hive mind. We've been observing them, living with them all of our lives. Like I say, it's kind of like oil and water. We're in the middle of it, but we're not part of it. We're just totally made of something different. But we can observe and learn. And when I was in business, I picked up on this very quickly. That you talk to a customer and they'd say something in response to something, and then you talk to another customer, maybe hundreds of miles away, and they'd say the same thing. And I learned that there was this pattern of thinking that is innately human, that once you catch on to it, that you pretty much got everybody figured out, at least in that aspect of it. Number 7, we already touched on this one, so we may as well dig into it, and that is exercise and diet. People ask me, Ken, how did you lose over 100 pounds? Exercise and diet, or if you prefer diet and exercise. What I've discovered is about 70-80% diet and the rest exercise. That's not to say that we should exercise less, because we shouldn't. We should exercise more. It's just to say, when it comes to weight loss, you can't outrun a bad diet. You can't do so many sets of lifting weights that it erases your really bad diet. I know some people, they go out and exercise, and man, they go out and run for an hour. And then they say, well, now I can go eat. And they just erase everything they just did because they think they earned it. Exercise and diet, number 1, helps control weight. Number 2, it improves our metabolic health. So think of food as medication. And let's think of it in these terms. And I've heard a lot of people say this. But if you could take exercise and put it in a bottle and sell the effects of it, you'd become a billionaire, because the effects of just getting out there, exercising, mow the grass, go out and take a walk, a long walk, if you're physically capable, lift weights. Yeah, you got to lift weights. And you can't get so old that you can no longer lift weights. I mean, you can't do it like you did when you were a kid, but you can still do it. I mean, if you got muscle and it's movable, you can improve your muscle. And when you improve your muscle, you improve your bones, or you protect your bones. I mean, there's so many benefits to exercise and diet that if we want to be functional, physically functional, we need to do this. Now, what is more, if we could go back to being mentally functional, what is more satisfying than being physically functional to our mind? It makes us happy, Now, when you eat, that gives you pleasure, right? So we'll eat something like potato chips, whatever, and then we'll eat something else that's really, really tasty, like ice cream. Just think of all the things that are palatable that you love to eat, and you string all those things together, and we think that's happiness. No, it's not happiness. You're just you're having a chain of pleasure. You're chain eating. The same thing as chain smoking or doing anything else in a chain. It gives you pleasure, but it doesn't give you happiness. What gives you happiness is being having a positive metabolic syndrome. Being in shape metabolically. Number 8 is what I use the acronym KUW, and that is K is knowledge. U is understanding, and W is wisdom. First thing you need to do is you need to know something. You can't understand it if you don't know it. So first of all, you have to know it so you can understand it. But what good is knowing something and understanding it if you don't apply what you know and understand? So let's say you go to school, you get a degree to be a physician. Get your MD, earn your MD. So you got knowledge, you understand how the body works, and then you go get a job at McDonald's or maybe driving a truck or something. What good is the knowledge and understanding if you don't apply it? Well, wisdom is the application of knowledge and understanding. So if you are a person with autism, what we want to do is we want to apply what we know and what we understand. And the important thing is you can't have wisdom until you have knowledge and understanding. Well, you're kind of doing that now, right? You're watching a video. You're trying to gain knowledge, you're trying to gain understanding so you can make application to what you've discovered. You're doing it. Congratulations. Number 9. This one just kind of popped in my head at the very end, but make what I call a deathbed list. Kind of like a bucket list, only this is just as you're about to kick the bucket. Let's say that you discover today that your life is going to end in 6 hours. And by the way, that's going to happen. I mean, we're all on the list. We're all going to fall off the conveyor belt, and there will be a point in time when we die, and there will be a point in time 6 hours before we die. So let's say that we're on a deathbed, and we know we're going to die in 6 hours. Ask yourself the question, what should I have done? If I could go back over my life and reprioritize, and that's what we're talking about here, is making life prioritization so we can be functional. And again, people with autism love to put things in a row. Why not prioritize things in our life? And we talked already about 8 of those things that need to be prioritized. You can add to the list if you want, but ask yourself what you wish you should have done. And what most people say is the things that are truly valuable to them are, family. And, things like things that are altruistic. But for some reason, we want to focus on the things that make lots of money because we think money is going to make us happy, and we want to be happy, right? But when we get to the point where we have to focus and put it in true, genuine perspective, we discover that, okay, wealth is okay, nothing wrong with being rich. I mean, if somebody offered me $1 billion, yeah, I'd take it if there were no strings attached. Sure, why not? But there are some things that are worth more than $1 billion. So let's say, for example, there's some old guy like me in his 70s, and let's say that I was a billionaire. And you would say, I'd kind of like to be that person. I'd like to be a billionaire like Ken. I'm wishful thinking here. So let's change places. You want to? Okay, cool. So you get $1 billion and you get to be in your 70s. And you're going to have problem with your shoulders. You're going to have a bit of arthritis. You're going to have an extremely shortened lifespan. But you do have $1 billion. You're going to have to spend it pretty quick because you're in your last decade or two of life. Then you stop and think, well, my life span is worth more than $1 billion. Congratulations, you're a billionaire. You have something, not material, not real cash, but you have something you just realized that is worth more than $1 billion. Way to go. We will see you all next time.